All of a sudden, Joe screamed, jumped out of the bed, and said, "Get away from the window."
What the
Lynn
hell?
then screamed, and I looked at the window to see what was happening.
All throughout the time that I was growing up, and especially in high school, I really liked to go over to my friend's house to sleep over, or have them come to my house to sleep over, because you could stay up late, you could play games, you could do fun activities. We used to have campouts with multiple friends, and we'd get around the fire and we'd cook marshmallows and roast weenies, and we'd also try to scare each other pretty bad or do crazy stuff. I remember one time we tried to build a zip line. Nobody got hurt, but we could have. that was a rough story. But honestly, what we tried to do mostly is just freak each other out. So I lived in a very wooded area toward the end of my high school career, I guess you could say. And I had some people that came over to the house, and we kept seeing this white van cross in front of the house. And we made up all sorts of stories about this thing, like that it was a stalker and he was abducting children in the neighborhood, and we were trying to, like, you know, play with each other's fears a little bit. We all kind of knew it wasn't true, but when we started seeing more of it, and it was just, it was so strange the way that it would appear when we'd start talking about it, and it would only pass at night. We were sure that something was up, we just didn't know. There was probably nothing sinister involved, but we tried to get in each other's heads, and it started backfiring and started to get to our own paranoias until we actually believed something was happening. It's the craziest things you can do with sleepovers, and it's really, really easy to get scared when you have other people that are kind of on the same wavelength as you about what's freaking them out, you know? So it's kind of like a panic crowd factor. You know, one person starts running and people see that person running, so they start running too. They don't even know why. It's kind of that mentality on a smaller scale. But that was the fun stuff about sleepovers. We're going to react to a sleepover horror story today by our good friend Spooked. Make sure to head on over to his channel, click the subscribe button, click the notification bell. And if you like reaction videos like this, make sure to subscribe to this channel as well. Let's get into the story.
About 10 years ago, when I was 15, my best friend Lynn and I were hanging out at my Auntie Joe's house.
All right.
We were watching films, eating pizza and snacks.
See that VCR?
And it got to around 11 p.m. So we
player
decided to stay over instead of going home.
Right.
We went to bed around midnight and decided to all stay in Joe's double bed, top and tail.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't go to sleep straight away, of course. We were gossiping and messing around. It got to around 1 a.m. and we decided to try to sleep, so we turned out the lights and got into bed.
Right.
We still didn't sleep right away. We were making jokes and laughing in the dark while fighting over the quilt. Joe's room is on the second floor, and it's laid out in this way. When you walk in the door, the bed and the window are straight ahead of you, with the top end of the bed against the wall, with the window on it. I was sleeping that end, so my head was at the wall end, while Joe and Lynn slept the other way around with a view of the window. I was slowly beginning to drift off to sleep, but kept hearing this noise that sounded a bit like something scraping the wall outside.
Alright, so I live in the country, and the first few times that this happened to me, it kind of scared me, and it was tree limbs, okay? So sometimes the night breezes are a little bit prevalent, and what happens is the smaller branches from trees that are touching the tin roof or even the shingled roof will brush, and it makes some scraping noises. The same thing with the plants outside and stuff like that. I lived in the country, and it was pretty natural to hear this, but I remember it freaking me out quite a lot before I got used to it.
I tried to ignore it, but it kept me awake, so I lay in the dark with my eyes open and waited for exhaustion to take over. All of a sudden, Joe screamed, jumped out of the bed, and said, "Get away from the window."
What the
Lynn
hell?
then screamed, and I looked at the window to see what was happening, and saw the silhouette of a person with their arms raised.
Oh my god.
We ran downstairs screaming for my mom, who rushed out of the living room to see what the noise was.
Second floor.
Joe was crying at this point, while Lynn and I were just in shock,
I gotta chill so
and we
bad,
each tried
dude.
to explain what had just happened. Once we finally got it out, my mom called the police and went upstairs with a bat to see if the person was still there. they weren't. The police came and took our statements, checked the area, and came up with nothing.
Prints, nothing?
But gave us another number to call should anything suspicious happen or the guy return.
I wonder if that was like a spirit or something, just like a manifestation of something. And if it was a person, they would have had to climb to the second floor, which isn't unheard of. It's usually easy to get on the roof of the first floor from like a fence, or I mean, we got on the roof all the time, you know.
We decided to sleep downstairs instead of going back up to Joe's room.
Good plan.
We were panicked and frightened, but Joe was still in a state. Lynn and I tried to calm her down and comfort her by saying he was gone and we could call the police if he came back.
Right.
But Joe looked at us both in the eyes and told us something that makes her skin crawl when she thinks about it now.
What?
See, Joe lives in this big Victorian-style house in a quiet area.
She knows.
And while there's a roof right beneath her window,
Right.
she always locks the window before sleeping.
Right.
And the lock is easily visible. This person, this guy, climbed up the roof and tried to open Joe's window. The guy had his arms raised though, which confused me until Joe told me that her window can open both ways, and she often opened it from the top instead of the bottom. The guy had clearly been watching the house for at least a day and had decided to strike that night.
Oh
But
my God.
luckily, we had been having the sleepover and saw him. Had Joe been alone that night, she would have been lying on her bed normally and wouldn't have seen the silhouette.
Dang. So it was really an intruder. So this guy was casing the joint, just waiting for an opportunity to do this. He ends up trying it one night, and she just so happened to have friends over, and he couldn't make it in. God, dog, man. You know, there's been times in my early childhood that I've seen, or I thought I've seen, people in the dark around my house. You know, a lot of the times I think it was my own mind playing tricks on me. Naturally, there'll never be any way to tell for sure. But I gotta tell you, that is some unnerving stuff. Like, you go from 0 to panic in no time flat. All of a sudden, as soon as you think, you know how sometimes you think you see something and you're like, wait, what did I just see? It's like your brain doesn't register yet. And then when you realize it takes shape, your heart rate just skyrockets all of a sudden. Next thing you know, your adrenaline's rushing and you're in fight or flight mode. It's crazy the way it happens, but I can't imagine seeing somebody like that on the second story. Like it would just, oh man, that would freak me out. It was a good story, guys. Spooked. He's got great stories. Check him out right here. There was another one on this video. In fact, it was 2 sleepover horror stories. Naturally, we only reacted to the first one. But you should check out the rest of the video. It's pretty good. As well as check out some videos that I reacted to him earlier. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off, and we'll see you next time.
Break it down.